we're going to talk about words to lose. These are words that actually sabotage our communication. And over on the right, we're going to put words to use. And these are words that support our communication. They contribute to us getting along instead of compromising it.
Welcome to the Seismic Shift podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Johnston. In this podcast, we explore the seismic shifts that are shaking up the way that we work and the way that we live. And I am so excited to introduce you to the one and the only Sam Horn. The lady with the black hat is in the house. And she wrote her most recent book. I think it's your fourth or your fifth book. And her books have been New York Times bestsellers. They've been in Forbes. They've been in Fast Company. Sam Horn has given 3 TEDx talks. She's the founder of Intrigue Agency. She helps companies like Intel, Oracle, Accenture, all with their communication. And this book is one of the best that I've read. And I'm so excited to have you on our show. Hi, Sam.
Hello, Michelle. I'm looking forward to sharing some stories and insights with your community.
Yes, indeed. So my listeners know that before we even get to all the great advice that you're going to talk to us about how to have these challenging, difficult conversations that are necessary in the work world right now. Hell, I mean, in our personal world, in our life, these conversations are necessary. I want to know about you. How did you become Sam Horn with all these accomplishments and the lady in the black hat?
Well, I really owe thanks to Dr. Ray Oshiro at University of Hawaii because I did a program for them called Dealing with Difficult People Without Becoming One Yourself. Now, that's a great title. It's just that at our first break, there was a gentleman in the front row. He didn't even get up to get some fresh air, a cup of coffee, just kind of sat there gazing off into space. So I was curious. I went over. I said, "What are you thinking about?" He said, "Sam, I'm a real estate broker." He said, "I deal with some very demanding people. They seem to think they can treat me any way they want to. I'm tired of it." He said, "I thought you were going to teach us some zingers to fire back at people and put them in their place." He said, "That's not what this is about." I assured him, no, it's not about putting people in their place. It's about putting ourselves in their place so we can respond with compassion instead of contempt. And he was the one who said, "I'm a student of martial arts." He said, "I studied karate, taekwondo, judo." He said, "What you're talking about is like a verbal form of kung fu, isn't it? Eureka, tung fu." And that's what we're going to talk about, is how we can talk on eggshells and use these techniques to help reach agreement instead of go down the rabbit hole of resentment.
Oh my gosh, I love it. And that's such a great vivid description of a guy on the front row waiting to learn about zingers so we can zing right back his difficult people. But then he becomes a difficult person. And wasn't the title of your talk how to deal with difficult people and not become one yourself?
That's right.
I love that. Okay. So as a lot of my listeners know, I'm co-authoring my second book, The Seismic Shift in You, with Marshall Goldsmith. And 2 of the chapters that we're working on right now, because there's 7 necessary shifts, and 2 of the 7 necessary shifts have to do with shifting your conversations and shifting your language. So speaking of seismic shifts, what seismic shifts are you seeing in your world? Because you travel all over the place giving speeches. Are you in Austin right now? Are you actually at home?
You bet I am. I'm looking out at that stream trail even as we speak, Michelle.
Oh, I love it. I love Austin, Texas. So you're at home now and you travel extensively. So what are some of the seismic shifts that you're seeing out there?
You know, I hope people, unless they're driving, get out a piece of paper right now, because I agree with you that showing the shift makes what's confusing clear. So if you have a piece of paper, put a vertical line down the center, and over on the left, put cancel culture. Right? Because right now there's a lot of people and it's very divisive and they have polarized opinion and they're canceling each other out. Well, over on the right, put cooperation, because John Mackey gave the cover endorsement for that book. And he said it is the cure for today's cancel culture, because it talks about collaborative language, cooperative language that puts us on the same side instead of side against side.
So it's wild that you mentioned the cancel culture. I had somebody I was walking with today, exercising, and he's also an executive coach. And we were talking about, he said, aren't you ever scared what you put out on LinkedIn? I said, what do you mean? He goes, all of your quotes? I said, no, what do you mean? He goes, I'm just so scared that if I put myself out there, I'm going to get canceled. And how sad is that and so many leaders are like that. They're scared to actually speak authentically. They're scared to post authentically for fear of getting canceled.
You know, Michelle, isn't it sad that we're not taught this in school, are we? We learn math, we learn science, we learn history. We're not taught what to say when someone blames us for something that's not our fault, or when someone tells something about us that's not true. So on the left, we're going to talk about words to lose. These are words that actually sabotage our communication. And over on the right, we're going to put words to use. And these are words that support our communication. They contribute to us getting along instead of compromising it. So you want a word to put over on the left?
Yes, please. And everybody, did you hear? This is a real exercise for all of us to draw a line down the center of your paper, a left and a right, words to lose and words to use. So let's go, Sam.
Let's put that word should over on the left. Well, you should have called if you were going to be late. Well, you should have been more careful. Well, you should have brought that up in the staff meeting. That word should serves no good purpose, because it usually pertains to the past. You know, anyone who can undo the past, we're coming across as a critic, and that person is losing face. Over on the right, put the words next time or from now on, because now we're shaping behavior instead of shaming it. People are learning from their mistakes instead of losing face, and we're being a coach instead of a critic.
Oh my gosh, I love that, because so much of the language, especially that we speak to ourselves is I should have. Okay, let's keep going. What are some other words on the left that we need to lose?
Let's put the words no, can't, because on the left. It's like, can we get this meeting started? Well, no, we can't because we don't have everyone here yet. Can I go ahead and move forward with that project? Well, no, you can't because we still need to get it through budget. Those words can't, because are like a verbal door slamming in someone's face. Now look what happens if over on the right, we put yes, as soon as, or yes, right after. Yes, we can get the meeting started as soon as we have a quorum. And if everyone's not here in 5 minutes, we're starting anyway. And thanks for your patience. Yes, we can move that project forward right after it gets approved by budget. Do you see how the words, yes, we can, as soon as, move us forward? Those words, no, can't, because, stop everything in its tracks.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I'm assuming at one point you're going to say, to not say, I'm sorry. And the reason why I bring that up is because when you just gave those great tips, it reminded me 4 years ago at the last election, I went to vote, and I teach an MBA class every Monday night from 6:20 until 9. And I showed up to vote at 4, never thinking that it would take hours and that I would be late for my class. And so I walk in maybe 10 or 15 minutes late for my class. And I said to the whole MBA audience, I am so sorry. I went to vote and I had no idea it would take that long. Please forgive me. I apologize. And it was persuasive presentation night. And one of the women got up to give her persuasive presentation and ended up using me as an example. She said, Dr. Johnston, she said, there was no need to apologize. You could have just said, because you lose power with apologies, you could have just said, thank you so much for your patience while I used my right as a citizen of the United States to vote tonight. I appreciate you.
Michelle, listen to the reframe, right? It's, Seth Godin gave a cover endorsement for my book, Pop, and he said, words matter, every single one of them. And that's what we're talking about, is instead of just saying what's top of mind and tip of tongue, no, what can we say that will actually help instead of hurt? Now, would you like another example about what to do if people complain? We are late. They didn't get what they wanted. We didn't keep a promise or something.
Yes.
Over on the left, put explain. Because if people complain and we explain, we think they're going to understand and forgive us. Guess what? They get angrier because they feel we're not being accountable. So people complain, don't explain. Over on the right, take the A train. A is for acknowledge. If someone says, hey, the class was supposed to start at 6:30 and you didn't even get here till 6:40. Oh, I know, but no, you're right. If we say the two words, you're right, class did start at 6:30 and it's now 6:45. And, do you see how acknowledging, using the word and instead of but? Because if we say, I'm sorry, but I was caught in traffic. There wasn't anything I can do. I'm sorry, but, it's the supply chain. It's not our fault. Do you see how those explanations come across as excuses if instead we acknowledge, we use the word and then we act? And let's jump right into it. And I've got that information. Once again, words matter. Instead of explaining when people complain, take the A train.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Well, how do you feel about apologies? I would love to know your opinion of that example. So it's on me. I voted, got caught in a 2.5 hour line. And I walked in and I thought, you know what? I just need to apologize and just own it. But do you agree that I should have walked in instead and just said, thank you so much for your patience? What would you do?
Interesting, Michelle, because in the Talking on Eggshells book, we talk about situational awareness, right? Is we read the room, what is appropriate in the situation. I remember speaking for Lockheed and I was talking about the A train and a woman put her hand up and she said, we've been taught never to apologize, especially as a woman, because it looks like it's our fault. And I said, I understand that. And I believe that there are some situations that acknowledging the other person's inconvenience, acknowledging that something went wrong doesn't mean we're to blame. It means we're seeing things from their point of view. They feel seen. They feel heard. They feel acknowledged that this was frustrating, that the ball got dropped. Doesn't mean our fault. It's just instead of not apologizing, which sometimes comes across as the person feels like what they're saying is falling on uninterested ears, that actually creates more conflict instead of cooperation.
Well, I love what you just said. You hit on, I think that connection, which is my big seismic shift. I believe that right now in 2024, it's all about connection, particularly for leaders and for teams and individuals. And the 5 dimensions that I've uncovered for the definition of connection is think about somebody that you feel really connected to at work. It's probably because they made you feel seen, heard, valued, respected, and appreciated. And when you feel those things, then you feel like you have a connection. It's typically because the other person is actually looking at you with eye contact, nodding their head, asking you questions, acknowledging how I feel, right? And going deep with the curiosity and finding commonality and a solution. So it's kind of, I'm thinking about that as you're talking, Sam. That really is the language that you're talking about, the words to lose and the words to use are all strategies to create more connection.
You're so right, Michelle, and it's a seismic shift. In fact, there's one 3-letter word that creates more conflict that actually cancels out connection. And I bet you know what that word is over on the left.
What is it?
The word but. Well, I hear what you're saying, but we tried that before and it didn't work. I know it's important to you, but we can't, it's like, well, I'm sorry that happened. But if we use the word but, we will be in a conflict because it's an either or, right, wrong conversation. People will repeat what they said louder next time because we're erasing it with that word but, right? Look what happens when we use the word and. You're right. We were supposed to do that. And, we're working on it right now and you'll have it by tomorrow. I know it's important to you. And we tried that before and it didn't work out. And do you have any ideas on how we could handle that more effectively next time? Substituting the word but with the word and is one of the quickest ways for us to move forward in a conversation that is proactive instead of anchoring it in this reactive back and forth, who's right, who's wrong.
I could not agree with you more. I've got to tell you, with working with Marshall, there are two things that he taught me that have made a significant difference in my life. And those two things are using and instead of but. So I just delete. I catch myself. And if I'm about to say but, I just say and it fosters connection. It finds commonality. It bridges people together and is fantastic. And the second thing he taught me is to let it go. And because what I'm realizing too, and I'll give you an example. Yesterday I was running, this is a funny example. I was running to deliver a presentation to a law firm. And I had on my power suit and I had on beautiful leopard heels. And right before I was leaving, I thought, oh gosh, that's right. I need to walk this pandemic dog that me and the rest of the world bought during the pandemic. I need to walk her around the block real fast before I leave for 4 hours. So I put on my leopard walking comfy shoes, my flats, my sensible shoes. They were leopard, but still. And so I walk her around the block and then hop in the car and head downtown and look at my feet. And I was like, oh my gosh, I completely forgot to put my actual presentation shoes back on. The old Michelle, which was a perfectionist on a hamster wheel to achievement. And I would have beaten myself up in the head. I should have known, I should have done this. How could you have? Are you kidding me? What are they going to think now? I'm in these awful flats. And guess what? That would have totally affected, though that script in my head would have affected the energy that I brought into the room and ultimately my effectiveness. And so just changing the language, that's what Marshall taught me. He's like, let it go. I had him in my head. This does not matter whatsoever. Did anybody die because you're wearing black? No. Is it going to affect your presentation? No. And just even the changing the language of how you talk to yourself affects how you show up in the world.
You're so right. Tara Conklin said, the story we tell about ourselves is our greatest work of art. Isn't that lovely though?
Oh, that is poetry.
Yeah, it is. And so see, look, over on the left, we can also put the word there's nothing. Well, there's nothing I can do about it now. It's like, well, there's no way we can help you. This is locked in. Those words, there's nothing, actually can come across to people as we don't care. And that's often when they get louder and in our face to make us care. Look what happens when we say there's something. Well, there's something I can do about it now. I can come in and tell a story about this in the first 60 seconds so people understand what happened instead of going, why is she wearing those shoes? And do we have time for a 60-second story? My favorite story about the difference this shift makes.
Yes, please.
I had a friend, you'd mentioned the pandemic, and I have a good friend who volunteers at a hospital. And in the middle of the pandemic, you can just imagine how stressful that was. And I asked, can you think of a situation where the words helped you save a situation instead of it really going south? And she didn't even have to think about it. She said there was a woman who ran in. She volunteered at the ER, ran in, held her phone up, said, my daughter's in the ER. I need to get in and see her. And so you may remember the rules. There's one visitor per patient or no visitors. She called the AER. Someone was already with the daughter and she had to deliver that bad news to the mom. Well, the mom lost it, screaming, yelling, crying. Now, Kay could have said, hey, there's nothing I can do. It's the policy. It's not my fault. And look what would have happened. The apathy, those words, there's nothing. Instead, she thought, there must be something I can do. She called the ER and she said, who is with the daughter? It was the Uber driver who had brought her in from the accident. She was able to explain the situation, thank him, he left, and the mom was able to get in with the daughter because she turned there's nothing into there's something. Talk about a shift, huh?
Oh, how about that shift? I love that. All right. This is so amazing. I hope that the listeners are realizing how powerful, I call it things that you can do to accelerate connection and things you do to erode connection. And all of these words on the left-hand side that Sam is advocating and recommending that we lose, those are words that erode connection. And then the words on the right-hand side are ways that we can build and accelerate connection. Keep going, Sam Horn. I'm loving this.
Good. Well, many of us, I know many of your listeners are managers, leaders, team, leaders, etc. And so often we think our job is to tell people what to do. Well, guess what? Over on the left, put the words you have to or you need to. You need to get this back to before end of business today is you need to talk with Bob. He's in charge of that. Well, you need to show your paperwork before we can move. Those words are orders and commands. And do you know anyone who likes to be ordered around? Look what happens when we put if you could or would you please over on the right. It's courteous instead of a command. People cooperate because they want to instead of they're being ordered to. And a quick example of this, I did some training for Kaiser. And I went in a couple years after we'd done our training. And the receptionist saw me walk in and no one was in the lobby. She beckoned me over. The words to lose, words to use reminder card was still taped on her reception desk. And she said, in particular, she said, Sam, I'm the first point of contact. So I'm the one who tells everybody you need to take this to section G. Well, you need to ask your doctor that. Well, you need to get your lab work done first. And then, well, you need to. And she said, I'm really friendly. And I could never understand why people were so rude to me when I was so nice to them. And then I realized I was ordering them around from the moment they walked in. And I've shifted that. It's like, if you would please get your lab work done and then take the results. If you'll bring that up with your doctor, look, the difference between a courtesy and a command.
Gosh, you're right. Nobody wants to be told what they have to do right now. And it does end up creating this defensiveness, in humans. Like you're all of a sudden when you hear that you have to, especially with the tone that typically comes with that. Well, have you gotten your lab results in? You have to get that first and then you have to bring it to the doctor. And immediately, a wall goes up like, don't speak to me like that. And why are you talking to me like that?
And I'll always remember there was a surgeon who stood up in the session and he said, come on, in the middle of an operation, I'm not going to say, would you please pass the scalpel? He said, I've just realized though that ordering has become such a habit. I use it at home and I realize why the affection has gone out of my marriage. Well, you need to get gas in the car before you come home. You need to take the dog to the vet this weekend. You need to call your mom and let her know we can't come this weekend. He says, I've been ordering my wife around. No wonder there's a resentment growing in our marriage.
That is a fabulous example because I've often thought, the whole premise of my first book, The Seismic Shift in Leadership, was that the command and control does not work. Leaders must change. Jerk bosses out. Toxic cultures out. Culture of fear out. And I had a listener, one of the call-in shows, I had a listener reach out to me and she said, doesn't this pertain to marriages as well? No one wants to be married to somebody who tries to command and control. And it goes both ways. It doesn't have to be the husband to the wife. It can be the wife to the husband. And that is the easiest way, right, to lose affection. No one wants to be controlled.
Agreed, and people may be wondering, what can I do if someone makes a negative accusation? Well, over on the left, put deny and defend. Because I was speaking at a conference and in the Q&A, a guy put his hand up and he said, why are women so catty to each other? I knew that if I denied that or if I thought, well, I don't think women are catty to each other, I would have argued his point. Instead, I Don Drapered it. You know what Don Draper said in the TV show Mad Men?
Mm-mm.
If you don't like what's being said, change the conversation. So I said, do you know what I found? I think women are real champions of each other. I wouldn't have this. So if someone says, you don't care about your customers, and we say, we do too care about our customers. Look, we're arguing with our customers about whether we care about our customers. Over on the right, you can say either these 4 words. What do you mean? Well, I left 3 messages and no one's come back. Oh, okay. The real issue, we can address that instead of reacting to their attack, right? So it's either what do you mean, or we redirect the conversation. You women are so emotional. Actually, I'm grateful to be emotional. It means I deeply care, to reframe instead of deny or defend.
Reframing is so huge. You are absolutely right. That is one of, I'm not even sure. I know you're a speaker and an author. Do you also do executive coaching?
You bet I do.
Yeah. So you and I are in the same position where I feel like a broken record often telling the leaders that I coach. It's all about how you frame it. Explain the why, right? Or, start with the why and frame it in a positive, respectful way. And boy, you're going to get so much more. So can you coach the listeners on how to frame it?
Well, you and I both love stories, Michelle. So I get to tell a recent story is that I just spoke at Conscious Capitalism, and John Mackey, who both founded Whole Foods and gave the cover endorsement for the Talking on Eggshells book, told the whole story about Whole Foods. Now, I'm paraphrasing what he said because he was so honest. He talked what it was like to be in the middle of a coup attempt. He talked about when the instigator from the organization, which shall remain nameless, he met with them because they were trying to do a hostile takeover. And the individual stood up and he pointed at John and he said, we're going to take you over. My first job is to fire you. I'm going to go to your board members, and if they don't play ball, I'm going to fire them, and there's nothing you can do about it. Well, Michelle, that's a dark night of the soul, and you can go down the rabbit hole of rage and resentment or helplessness or whatever, or you can reframe it. He just kept saying to himself, what's the win-win-win solution to this? What's the win-win-win solution to this? He woke up every morning. What's the win-win-win? And then one morning he woke up and he thought, Amazon. He'd met Jeff Bezos the year before. He'd been favorably impressed. He reached out to Jeff Bezos. Bezos and his team got back within 24 hours, and they sealed that deal, that sale to Amazon, in 6 weeks. And it was because he communicated the vision, not the variables. So absolutely, it can be taught. Focus on what you do want instead of what you don't. Communicating that to you and your team, chances are a lot more likely it's going to happen.
This is so beautiful because I've been fascinated with because we talk about positive environments, right? And that's also one of my book chapters, Shift Your Environment. It's on you as a leader to create a positive environment, but leaders but I don't know how to do that. And we're not even talking about furniture shifting, although that matters, right? We're not even talking about taking away offices with closed doors or maybe not even that, but adding more collaborative workspaces. Those things matter. And what really matters is the language and how you share the vision and articulate expectations. So you as a leader shape and shift your team's environment every single day by the words that you use.
It's, and that's why the end of every chapter in that book has what I call juxtarows, contrasting columns, reactive, proactive. It's words to lose, words to use is what sabotages our communication, what supports it. And I know we need to wrap up soon. So let's add one more word to lose and word to use to that reminder card. And then maybe people can post it on their refrigerator to keep these ideas in sight, in mind, right?
Yes.
Over on the left, let's get rid of that word problem. It's like we end meetings by saying, any other problems we need to talk about? Can I talk to you? Sure. What's the problem? It's like, can I go ahead and move ahead with that? Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. For most people, the word problem means something's wrong. And it gives people the impression something's wrong, even when there's not. Over on the right, just use any phrase that doesn't use the word problem. At the end of a meeting, anything else we need to talk about? Sure, you're welcome to go ahead with that. Instead of, I have a problem with the way you handled that. Can we talk? Look at how we open up our communication instead of shut it down with one little word. Get rid of that word, problem.
Oh my gosh, I've loved this. And I would love to end on this note. I'm going to throw one more thing at you, Sam. I believe in my tagline is connection drives results. So I believe that if you really do focus on ways to accelerate connection through your environment, your language, your conversation, your energy, you're going to get a return on your investment in that. Can you share with the listeners that if they were to take all of those words and actively lose them and instead choose the words that create more positive conversations, more positive connection, what will they get in return? What will happen?
You know, Elvis, that great philosopher, Elvis Presley, said, when things go wrong, don't go with them. So what we will get if we choose to focus on words to use instead of, is that when things go wrong, we don't make them worse. We don't use these words that actually cause people to resent us, to get upset. We use words that once again help things go right. We fix the course for the future instead of the blame for the past.
Mic drop. That's such a great ending, Sam. I can't thank you enough for being on the Seismic Shift podcast. Gosh, I hope you all who are tuning in are as energized as I am. I'm actually going to go back and I want to get a laminated card. I think that's what I'm going to do today. My marketing person is on her way over and I want to have a laminated card that I can put also on my desk and my refrigerator just to remind me. And again, I think this is so huge in how your language shapes the way you talk to yourself, shapes the way you talk to others, which shapes the positive environment we're in. So it's going from negative and potentially triggering people and making things worse to really creating a positive environment, which we all thrive in. Thank you so much, Sam, for being on the Seismic Shift.
I've thoroughly enjoyed this, and I can't wait till your book comes out with Marshall. What a great read that's going to be.
Well, we're highlighting you, girl. Thank you so much. Y'all take care. Have a beautiful day. Thank you for joining us on the Seismic Shift. And before you go, can I ask one favor of you? Do you mind sharing today's episode with a leader you know? The power of this conversation is found in your using it and sharing it to create real connection in your life. Lastly, I'd like to thank Loyola University New Orleans for helping bring this content to life.